Before you've heard these words, Guillermo del Toro's astonishingly gorgeous Crimson Peak will have had its box office receipts tallied up, and a room full of executives won't have been pleased with the results. But I won't yet count this gorgeous film among the unloved, because I have hope it will find its audience, that word of mouth won't dissuade curious viewers from falling under its ornately decorated spell. For not only does it succeed on del Toro's artistic terms, it is a loving survey of Mexican and Spanish horror, the sort we don't talk about without at least one eyebrow raised, the sort we seem timid about calling great. Many Latin horror movies in the 1970s were pained cries from behind lines drawn by dictators. In Spain, General Franco's reign of terror was slowly coming to an end. He was old and dying, and filmmakers took advantage of this by filling screens with bloody revolutionary tracts. They looked like vampire or slasher films, but they were manifestations of anger directed at a tyrant who had killed thousands whose only crime was believing in a better future for their home. In Mexico, a period of genocidal repression under more than one president raged without interference or intervention. Thousands searching for land rights were kidnapped and killed, fighting back violently to keep from being erased from history. All they wanted was to be treated like human beings. Del Toro himself suffered the shockwaves of the Mexican government's creation of a climate of violence. There were many films that addressed in a veiled way the despair that artists felt about the crimes their governments were getting away with. None were quite as potent as those by the Mexican surrealist Juan López Moctezuma.
International press! Albert Morel. International press. My credentials.
We've had enough of you, Morel.
Kneel.
Like Guillermo del Toro, Moctezuma was fascinated by the scars of the Spanish Civil War and the bleeding of Latin America through corruption and murder. Del Toro mythologized the conflict. Ghosts and monsters stand in for the incomprehensible horrors of war. A way to tell children what fascism feels like. The way it acts like a friend, a confidant, a figure of authority. Moctezuma also spoke in metaphor, but his were louder, angrier, and uglier. His vampire film Alucarda, a major influence on Crimson Peak, is about hysteria as the only logical response to religious governance. But his 1973 movie, The Mansion of Madness, is his real statement on the violent paradox of civilization. Whether he means the one in Mexico, Spain, America, or somewhere else is beside the point. Stop me if you've heard this before. An outsider is given a tour of an asylum before realizing that the inmates have taken over. He soon finds himself on trial for his life.
It's time to go to bed, LeBlanc. Tomorrow you have an unusually difficult day. You'll visit the dungeons. Pleasant dreams, my friend. And if you hear strange noises during the night, fear not, for your shadows will protect you. Your shadows will watch over your sleep.
The fact that the film is based on an Edgar Allan Poe story, and that it's drenched in overwhelming artifice may explain how The Mansion of Madness snuck past censors. It isn't necessarily a descent into the eldritch corridors of a specific dictator's brain, so you couldn't silence the film on its face. It probably looked too self-consciously arty or too tawdry to be political. That was how so many filmmakers crept by the watchful eyes of classification boards.
You haven't yet won, you miserable rebels! You haven't vanquished your emperor! I'll fight you traitors one by one, or all of you at once!
Moctezuma had an edge on all of his peers, however. A cohort of the great fabulist Alejandro Jodorowsky, he plainly learned from collaborating on the Chilean directors El Topo, and from watching his psychedelic touchstone, The Holy Mountain. Both men are keen to induce the sweet oppression of images in their audience's brain. Moctezuma wanted the perfectly designed, purposefully disquieting compositions and sounds to push you a little closer to insanity. Audience member might just begin to wonder what was happening around Moctezuma's homeland that would cause him to search this deeply for the unsettling truth of madness in his pictures. Then, as now, madness doesn't look like it does in movies. It's a government refusing to let images of a decades-long struggle reach the internet. It's having to leave your home because it has hurt you and your family. Pictures make the past impossible to deny, and they let us commune with what we lost. This was what Moctezuma understood. His images may be upsetting, but they're clear, deliberate, and stunning. The film's reputation suggests that atmosphere and winning visuals don't grant you a seat at the table critically. The Mansion of Madness was not well liked at the time, nor is it well regarded now. Its legacy is so negligible that it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. But you cannot take its power away. Images are stronger than a fleeting impression. The Mansion of Madness and Crimson Peak will outlast momentary indifference. As long as we remember, as long as we keep the images in our heart, the truth will never die.